How's everybody doing? Welcome back to the channel. Follow up on Rikers Island. I once did a video on Rikers Island a long time ago, and it really wasn't that extensive. A lot of people are interested in Rikers Island. There's only one way in and out of Rikers Island, and that's a bridge that they bring the prisoners over. They bring the workers over, the employees, the civilians that work in Rikers Island. Anyone that goes in and out of Rikers Island, there's only one way in and one way out. It is truly an island that's not far from LaGuardia Airport. It sits in the river. And as I said, there's one way in and one way out on that bridge, located in Queens. It's a cement jungle. That's the name you could give to the cement jungle. I spent a total of 3 years in Rikers Island. Goes back a little bit, 1996, 1997, 1998. And I was finally sentenced in 1999. And then I went upstate to prison for 17 years. So I have some firsthand experience about Rikers Island. In my day, there was about 16,000 prisoners on Rikers Island on any given day. That's a lot of prisoners, man. The average prison upstate New York, a very big prison, holds 2,000 prisoners. The average prison is about 1,000, 1,200 prisoners. Rikers Island has 16,000 prisoners on any given day back then. I believe the population is a little less right now. A lot of talk about closing Rikers Island. They've been talking about it for a decade. A lot of political talk. Certain politicians want it open, certain politicians want it closed. The problem is, what do you do with the people who commit crimes? Where do you put them? When they get arrested, each borough, Queens, Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Staten Island, does have their own jails, but those jails are probably not large enough to hold the amount of people who are committing crimes and need to be detained. So this is why they keep Rikers Island open. Although Rikers Island is one jail, there's about 10 different jails inside of Rikers Island. What I mean is different buildings. There's like a building called C95 where they house prisoners, another building called OBCC, another building called C73. They had there's a lot of, it's like a little city. It's a small city. They have their own sewer plant. They have their own courthouse. I mean, not their own courthouse, their own power plant. I believe they even have their own zip code. I think Rikers Island has its own zip code. So it's a freaky place, man. As far as violence, what you hear, the violence is off the charts. It is a very dangerous, violent place. I would say if anyone ends up in Rikers Island, the question is, are they going to be safe? Um, uh, Probably not. Rikers Island is not a safe place. They have someone like the pervert Harvey Weinstein is on Rikers Island right now, but obviously he's segregated. He's in protective custody, probably called what's IPC, involuntary protective custody. But the general population is off the charts. Um, there are cuttings every day, every single day. The fights, you wouldn't say there's a fight every day. There's 50 fights every day. There's slashings, there's stabbings, there's people getting their faces melted with boiling baby oil. There's a lot of people getting jumped. The gangs jump a lot of people. You know what I mean? They don't do one-on-one fights. There's gangs fighting with each other. There's corrupt officers. The list goes on and on. I mean, I saw on Rikers Island, what I've seen on Rikers Island is truly, truly intense. I saw an officer wear his Rolex. He was dumb enough to wear his Rolex watch into work, and the prisoners jumped him, stole his wallet, stole his Rolex, and then they move it throughout the prison to hide it. Uh, I've just seen so many things. I was probably on. I've always said, without exaggerating, if a man has been in 10 all-out fights his whole life, some people consider that a lot. I was in 10 fights a week. I was in 2, 3 fights a day sometimes, mainly because I was young and I was 24 years old when I went in there. And I thought I was going to die in prison. I was facing a murder charge. So I figured I was going to live in there for the rest of my life. So I was in the mind frame that I'm going to show them, not to fuck with me. But Rikers Island is dangerous, man. There's a lot of people withdrawing from drugs, which makes it very unstable because these are people that are just getting arrested. They're just coming off the street. There's a tremendous, tremendous number of mentally ill that gets put in Rikers Island, especially, excuse me, especially because New York State closed almost all, the majority of their mental facilities, mental institutions. So now what they said is they've designed the jail to be able to house those people with mental health needs, but they're really just in the population and they are very unstable, which makes for an unstable environment. So there's a tremendous amount of mentally ill in Rikers Island. Very, very dangerous to be someone around someone who's not only criminal but very unstable mentally and emotionally. That creates very nerve-wracking circumstances. Then there are the people withdrawing from drugs. A lot of people withdrawing from heroin. A lot of people withdrawing from methamphetamines. A lot of people withdrawing from cocaine and crack cocaine. A lot of people withdrawing from pills. And anyone that's experiencing withdrawal symptoms obviously becomes very edgy, becomes very neurotic, suffers a lot of anxiety, again becomes unstable. So people who are withdrawing are a problem to deal with on Rikers Island, and they really don't have anything. You got to imagine these people are coming off the street. They're being scooped up for whatever crimes out of the subways, off of the streets in Manhattan and Brooklyn and the Bronx, and they're coming in there. They don't have two nickels to rub together. They're just looking for coffee and cigarettes. They don't even care about their court date. They're really sick, so that's a part of the population as well. And you have to understand that everybody's mixed together on Rikers Island. What I mean by no one is segregated by crime. So you could have a company setting or a dorm type setting where there's murderers, rapists, robbers, home invaders, scam artists, drug addicts, mentally ill, child molesters, all together in the same area. Nobody is separated by crime, and Rikers Island is a jail. I should say that for those of you that don't know the difference between jail and prison. Prison is when you are sentenced to more than 1 year, and then you go upstate to prison if the judge sentences you to more than 1 year. Jail, like Rikers Island, is where you are serving less than a year. If the judge sentenced you to 9 months, to 6 months, to 3 months, to 30 days, then you do that in the jail. And you are also in jail if you are just waiting for your criminal case to be finished. So you could have a serious murder charge facing 25 to life, and you're in jail with the guy who's only doing 30 days, and you're in the same area. So it's pretty crazy. They have a team there. I believe they were called the Turtles. They were officers who's responded to crisis throughout the prison. If there was a big violent crisis going on, they called them the Ninja Turtles. They show up with their shields and their black gloves and their helmets to break up the violence. Rikers Island is very, very corrupt. A lot of the correctional officers there are right out of the same projects that the prisoners are from, so they know each other. You understand? Rikers Island is in the heart of the boroughs, right? So the correctional officers are from Queens, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and it's not officers get cut, they get stabbed, they get beat up, they get shit thrown on them, they get piss thrown on them. I mean, it's really an unstable place. If you go into Rikers Island, you will be prepared for people to extort you, for people to fight with you. You better learn how to fight on Rikers Island. You hear me make a lot of videos about prison, and I say, guys won't really go out of their way to mess with you, and if you carry yourself like a man, you'll be all right. That's true in most cases in prison. In Rikers Island, that's not true. People are going to come out of their way, and they're going to go for you. They're going to try and take what you have. Like I said, I was in tons of fights in Rikers Island. You fight over the phone, you fight over food, they fight over the television, they fight over noise, they fight over disrespect, they fight over gang stuff. They fight. It's crazy. It's a really, really a fast-paced, aggressive institution. In my opinion, should they close it down? What do you do with the prisoners if you close it down? What they need is to run it more like a military is what they need. They need to run it like a boot camp. You know what I mean? Because it seems like the prisoners have always had their way there. They have a commissary on Rikers Island. It's not a commissary like a prison. You know, I wouldn't know all these years later what it's like, but in my day, they sold cold cuts and they sold bottles of soda and they sold candy bars. They sold potato chips and a lot of junk food and honey buns and you know, things like that. Um, Everyone's getting high too. A lot of drugs on Rikers Island. A lot of drugs on Rikers Island. They're coming in through the visits. They're coming in through the offices. So guys are sniffing dope all day long. They're sniffing heroin. They're smoking weed. You know, I believe there's a methadone program on Rikers Island for guys who are detoxing. They don't have that in prison. In prison, that's a wrap. You're not getting that. But I think in Rikers Island, they have the methadone. Um, they do have the visits. You go to. I remember we used to go to the visits. You had to wear slippers and a gray jumpsuit with Velcro that they used to give you. But inside, guys used to be allowed to wear their personal clothes. I don't know the way it is now. You know, I had a lot of tough fights on Rikers Island. A lot of tough fights. Someone had stole my shaving razor out of the shower. I left my shaving razor in the shower. I made an announcement to the dorm that whoever took it didn't have the balls to take it to my face. Some guy stood up. We started brawling. I've had fights over the phone. You know, I've had fights over disrespect. Yeah, a lot of intensity, man. A lot of intensity there. Um, Getting transferred to the courts from Rikers Island is really crazy. Like if you have a court day, it's real chaos. You know, um, I seen guys get beat up because they come into the dorm and turned over the coffee pot. You know, prisoners care about coffee, man. They care about coffee and they care about cigarettes. And I remember this guy came into the dorm and broke the coffee pot. He had about 25 to 30 prisoners just attack him and beat him until they dragged him out, you know, in his underwear, you know, basically naked. These guys beat him up so bad he ended up laying naked on the floor. A lot of scalpels to cut people on Rikers Island. A lot of razors on Rikers Island. You know, a lot of weapons on Rikers Island. Those mostly come in through the officers, selling them to the prisoners. You know, that's what they do. Scalpels are nasty too, man. You see a lot of guys on Rikers Island with big, huge cuts to the side of their face, where they call it getting a buck 50 because it takes 150 stitches to close the wound that they have on each other's face. Um, you're not going to get any help there or assistance there. Like, let's say you went into Rikers Island and you were scared to live in the population, you know, and you went to the administration. You said, "Listen, I'm scared to live in here." The most they'll do for you is probably stick you into protective custody, you know. And protective custody, from what I hear, is a pretty nasty place anyway. If someone wants to get to you, they'll get to you in protective custody. There's like real no safety there wherever you want to go. A guy like Harvey Weinstein is an exception because of how high profile is. They probably have him in his own unit, segregated away from everyone in the world, because if he gets killed there, there's going to be a lot of questions that have to be answered. Um, what else could I tell you about Rikers Island? Yeah, I've seen a ton of people's faces get melted there. Guys would heat up baby oil and throw it in each other's face. You know, I was a pretty crazy kid when I was there. I was 24 years old. I was coming off of the influence of drugs. And I'll give you a little story of how insane I was and how crazy it could be. I was in a dorm type setting, and I was able to get any mental health drugs that I wanted to get, you know. And so they used to give me these things to help me sleep. I forget what the name of the pill was because I'm going back 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But they used to give me pills to help me sleep. And so there were guys in the dorm that would like to buy those pills, you know what I mean? And there was one particular guy that used to try to buy pills off of everyone. He just wanted to be drugged up as much as possible. And so what I would do is I would sell him my medication, and when it was commissary time, he would give me about 4 or 5 packs of cigarettes, you know, in exchange for the medication I gave him all week because I didn't want the shit anyway. And so commissary comes and he doesn't pay me, and you know, he says, "No, I got you the next time. I had to pay a lot of people. I'm really sorry, Fish. Don't worry about it." and that's a violation when you don't keep your word. You know what I mean? But I let it go with this guy, and I keep giving him the medication for another week, and now 2 weeks comes, and he gives me the story again at commissary time. The next time commissary. So now I said, you know what? I had it with this guy, and the guy used to sleep really, really hard because of all the medication and all the pills he was taking. He would be sleeping on his back, snoring, knocked out. And so what I did was I took a roller. First, I ripped some bed sheet, and the guy slept so hard that I was able to put the bed sheet around his ankles and tie him to the bed frame without him waking up. Went over there, made like a little noose, put it around his foot, tied it to the leg of the bed frame, tied the other leg to the bed frame, and then what I did was I wrapped his entire legs with toilet paper. And then once he was wrapped up with toilet paper, I set him on fire in his sleep. This way, when he woke up, he was screaming and he was on fire and he was panicking. It was, yeah, yeah, I was out of control. I mean, that was just one of a million situations. I could give you 1,000 stories about how crazy Rikers Island is. It's a place you don't want to go. It's the cement jungle. You are choking, as I say, you are choking in silent pain in that place. Each day, it's like being trapped under a steel and brick umbrella. You know what I mean? It is soul crushing, spirit crushing. And what's really, really makes it bad is the animalistic prisoners that are in there. I'm talking about guys straight out of the gutter, man. Vicious guys out of the gutter with no morals, no values at all. You think of the worst out of Brooklyn, Harlem, the Bronx, Queens, and Manhattan, with all the mentally ill, the criminally mentally ill, and then throw them in one place and just watch what happens, because there's really no structure. I was in different parts. I was in OBCC, I was in C73, I was in C95, C95. I was in a dorm type setting where there was 65 guys in a dorm and one correctional officer. One. 65 guys in the dorm and one officer that sits in front of the dorm reading the newspaper. He leaves the dorm, constantly throughout the day to go hang out with his other officer buddies who are in what's called the bubble. There's a bubble there, like where 5, 6 officers sit so they can monitor 4 dorms at the same time. Because there'll be like a center bubble, and then there'll be dorms off to the side, 4 dorms, and they have a view of all 4 dorms. So they're watching 240, 250 guys, 4 or 5 officers, very understaffed, Rikers Island, and not a good combination. Um, so it's a place you don't want to go. You definitely want to stay away from Rikers Island if you're there, man. It's a violent, nasty, crazy place. Crazy place.